the black man is God.
There is no criterion for the current hip-hop culture, so anybody can jump in, get in front of a microphone and say, yo, I'm a rapper, I'm hip-hop, which then becomes part of the reputation of Black America.
White people always had, from then to now, an appetite for particular constructions of blackness. The pantsy, the bully coon, and the Jezebel.
How does the black woman see herself? Because now the correlation is that she believes she is God, a step above the black man, right? In the way that he calls himself a God.
The father of the Anunnaki, that Sumerian word An is a Sumerianization of the global name Allah.
It's 19 keys. 19 keys.
I appreciate my pops for teaching me how to be a guy.
From a boy to a man, and ultimately back into the natural state of being into a God.
As guys, we're supposed to always move with that higher self.
But I have to be able to execute it. Having knowledge is not power, the execution of knowledge is power.
Knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave. Because the only real knowledge you can get is knowledge of self.
The highest level. The highest level is ownership. The highest level is power. The highest level is sovereignty. The highest level is higher consciousness. The highest level is when we own our own culture.
Excellence at a very high level. Not eye level. A high level.
It's time for a high level conversation.
We're here for another high level conversation.
19 keys, and this is a high level conversation.
Tap in with the God.
Peace, family. Welcome back to another high-level conversation. Today, I want you to forget what you think you know, particularly upon the subject of the Anunnaki and ancient Sumeria. And I want you to be open to a dialogue that maybe just some of the information that you've gotten were possible misinterpretations, incorrect decodings, right? And part of the imagination of those who've gotten information and supplied the world with what I would say is partially their poetic license. Today, I have somebody that I'm going to read directly from his book, going into the first chapter, and we're going to get into this subject, a subject that has become very famous, especially across the internet today. As somebody who's recently been, I wouldn't say attacked, but represented as an influence of Black America in media by the Oxy report that says that sometimes Black platforms represent a revisionist history. Now, they couldn't tell us what history, because then we have to get into debate of detail, right? And then they don't want to get there. So they'd rather throw these general titles. The reason that I'm having part 2 of a conversation with the scholar that I have on today is because he challenges people that if you have something that you think is wrong in my book or in my work, bring it to the table and we can deal with it. Otherwise, be satisfied with the facts and the truth that have been presented, and let this be your superior truth that you now move upon. So today we're going to get into first starting off with the Anunnaki. So let me, if I will, read this first chapter. Sumer is the name of the ancient Mesopotamian civilization that preceded the Akkadian and Babylonian civilizations of the area now called Iraq. It is believed by many scholars to be the oldest civilization. Others contend that such honor should be given to Kemet, or ancient Egypt. I will not engage in that debate here, except to point out that both civilizations, at least in part, derived from or were influenced by earlier civilizations of Arabia, otherwise Black Arabia. However, I will point out that Sumer was a Black civilization. Now, because he's been here already, and some of you all may be new, but this is by the good God, the good brother, my brother, Dr. Wesley Muhammad. When Dr. Wesley Muhammad presents any information, I listen, right? Because I look at my brother as an elder, if you will. Not older, elder, right? And I was asking him, how do you pick your subjects? And I think the most important part that he articulated to me is the fact that he's not looking to write a book, but when he can contribute something new, right? And not just regurgitate something that's already been there for the point of. So I wanted to get into this because there's so much narrative that is consistent around this, but nobody points out Arabia. Nobody looks at it as a black civilization. Most people look at it as a ancient alien, but in the sense that these are grays, in the sense that these are reptiles or whatever their imagination plays it as. Nobody looks at this as a black civilization. So I want to first start right there of how do you begin to make the bold assertion and claim that this is an ancient black civilization, right? Versus the narratives that are out there that this civilization doesn't have a particular color, or these are ancient aliens who were giants, right? Or who ascended from a spaceship that came to decode human beings for whatever purpose that they had intended for.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother 19 Keys. First, of course, I'm honored to be back on your show.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
You have a powerful platform and you use it very responsibly. And that's good because that does not go without saying. A lot of powerful platforms that are used recklessly, irresponsibly, but I really appreciate how you use what Allah God has blessed you with. So regarding ancient Sumer, first allow me to say, with all of the narratives that are out there, one, or I would say even the primary problem that has generated this cottage industry of narrative is if somebody is presented a plastic bag full of puzzle pieces, it would be difficult, not impossible, but very difficult to put that puzzle together the way it was presented. Why? Because the pieces were given to you in a plastic bag, absent the puzzle picture. Most researchers, or most subjects, and in particular this subject, since we're talking about ancient Sumer, the Anunnaki, there are so many narratives because people are trying to put pieces together without a reference to the picture box. What is the picture box, Keys? What is the image that helps guide how these pieces of fact and data fit together? The teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad are the picture box. And by starting there, the data, the facts from various fields, we can see clearly how they should fall into place. And so, because his Islam is mathematics, and mathematics is Islam, that means there must be factual consistency. There must be data collection and data consistency. His teachings shine light on any subject. And with the Anunnaki, the problem for me, the reason I felt compelled to write that particular book, the Anunnaki narrative has been, I will use this language, some might object to it, but I will use it anyway, has been hijacked by a particular paradigm, the Sitchin paradigm, the paradigm of Israeli former economist turned Anunnaki scholar, Zachariah Sitchin. The whole narrative of the Anunnaki has been dominated by the Sitchin paradigm. His reading of some of the data, not all of it, sometimes his misreading of the data, and sometimes, you said it right, the creative license that he took. And so you have the Sitchin narrative imposed on the Sumerian data, the Anunnaki data, which is misleading. And I am showing in my book, because I believe the data compels us to acknowledge that what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said about the original man, where he began, how he began, who he is, and how he is, that is the light that makes all of the Sumerian data fit unforced. Unforced. See, you can force puzzle pieces that look like they go together, but they don't. So you just you make them fit because you don't know what the right puzzle piece for this section is. The teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is that which shines light on this subject and any subject. So the ancient Sumerians are black. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us that that whole area, Arabia, was the black man's and woman's land. We black people founded that area of the Arabian Peninsula. Sumer, or ancient Mesopotamia, is in the northern section of that peninsula. Western politics divided that peninsula up the way it is right now. So when we say Arabia, we think of Saudi Arabia, to the exclusion of the other nation states that inhabit that peninsula right now. But that whole peninsula is Black Arabia, and Sumer, or Mesopotamia, is on the northern end of ancient Black Arabia. And the population, the archaeological, the evidence of the bones, the human remains of ancient Sumer, human remains of the Sumerians, there were non-Semitic people, and the successor civilization, the Akkadians, who were a Semitic people. They were black, and they both derived ultimately from the more southerly eastern portion of the Arabian Peninsula. So Black Arabia is at the root of ancient Sumerian or Mesopotamian civilization. Black Arabia is at the root of ancient Kemetic Egyptian civilization. So, in conclusion, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Arabia is the root of civilization, some of our nationalist family got upset with him. They think he was being anti-African because he moved the root of civilization in their mind out of Africa into the Middle East. No, he did not. Black Arabia was always nothing but the northeastern extension of what is now called Africa. So he told the truth that Black Arabia is the root of Black civilizations, and Sumer is a daughter civilization of Black Arabia.
I can see that. I was looking at a report where it was last year, and they was talking about how Black Iraqis, right, darker skinned Iraqis are finally getting to be seen, right? And because of so much racism, right, and prejudices that exist out there, which happen all across the planet Earth, wherever there's only the lighter representation of people, there's hidden dark figures.
That's right.
Right? And those are the original people.
That's right.
Right? And so when you think about Iraq, you think a very light man.
That's right.
Right? You think about modern Arabians. You don't think about an African-looking brother such as yourself.
That's right.
Which is why it's hard for people to puzzle it together, because the picture has never been depicted darker.
That's right.
So they say, oh, wait a minute, are you rewriting? Right? No, this is not me rewriting. This is the original writings. Right. So I think that darker people across the planet Earth, have all, been stuck under this erasure, right, of Black history. And now what they call, and this unfortunate, there was this sister named Osu, which is a Nigerian sister, speak about Black platforms doing revisionist history, because we're like, whose history, right, are you speaking on? Because their history needs to be revised.
Absolutely, that's what I said. Revisionist historian, from a academic standpoint, is not a slur.
Yes, sir.
History as written absolutely must be revised. In most fields that have had an orthodox understanding of that field that has been in place for 50 or 100 years, almost all of those fields are under attack by revisionist historians, sparked by what? An ideological dislike for the orthodox history? No. Sparked by new data. New data forces revision. The fact of the matter is, almost all of the old history was blatantly ideological. That's why most old history is wrong.
Right.
It has to be revised. So when I read them refer to you in the language revisionist, well, wear that as a badge of honor, because in true scholarship, history writing, history revision is absolutely necessary, because data accumulates, paradigms are shifted based on the uncovering of new material, but fundamentally, almost all old history is ideological. It's racist, it's political, it has a non-academic, non-scientific agenda. So in the academy, you can't even cite old sources without qualification. Because the presumption is there and justifiably that the old sources didn't really come close. At least those sources did well, but those sources were bogged down by ideology, by agenda. So if we are going to use old sources today, we have to do it with qualification.
Now, first of all, that's a very old sources without qualifications. Because I believe we have a whole culture that's based on old sources without qualification.
Absolutely.
Which is why there's so much in-house fighting today.
Yes, sir.
Because there is no scrutiny of truth.
Absolutely.
There's no rigorous process, right, that one can say, well, this is how we came to this conclusion.
Absolutely.
Everything is just an old source.
Absolutely.
Without qualification.
Absolutely.
And people who cite those sources don't have qualifications themselves.
Absolutely.
To even, determine whether the process that they've gotten to, that you're reading and now sourcing from, was correct or incorrect.
Absolutely.
Again, and not to always give my brother praise, all praise is due to Allah, but the reason that I like sitting with you and speaking with you, because you focus on that scientific process. You focus on that process of scholarship. And we need that more than ever in a world of mis and mal and disinformation, especially in a world of artificial information now.
Yes, sir.
Things, you can artificially generate a picture of something, then artificially generate facts around that. And so multiple people living in multiple worlds based on whatever information that they consumed, right? So having the old school way, I would say, of going through process and determination to get to what is the value of this knowledge that's being presented. What's going to happen is when you go through it, it's going to wipe away so many different sects, so many different texts that people are referring from. And what happens is that people get to a point where it is ideological and it's their belief system. And so they don't want to get rid of their beliefs.
Absolutely.
So therefore they won't consume the truth.
Absolutely.
In a matter to where they can digest the seeds, let it take root and be like, I vow that this is superior knowledge.
Absolutely.
So we're not fighting on the truths, right? It's a battle of beliefs.
Absolutely. Well said.
Now, I want to get to that. So now we have the current belief in most people's head of who are the Anunnakis, and then we have the Black Anunnakis. So for those who have limited knowledge on the subject and for those who have so-called superior knowledge on the subject, can we lay out a foundation of who are the Anunnakis from the Zachariah Stitch paradigm, right? And the new paradigm, right? As I'll call this the Wesley paradigm, just for the point of this conversation and maybe for the point of future conversations. So what is the Zachariah Stitch version of the Anunnakis?
Okay. May I start with the true version and then get to what I am suggesting is a fabricated version? And it's not the Wesley paradigm. It's the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the black man is God.
Yes, sir.
Said whenever you look at a black man, you are looking at God. He presented to us a detailed theogony, the process by which the black man came to be and came to be God. Now, I'm an historian of religion, Brother Keys. That's my training, which means I engage in a historical, critical study of religious traditions and religious texts. And as an historian of religion, I've studied all of the ancient religions, all of the ancient texts. And when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us about this group of gods, he called them the 12 major scientists, the 24 scientists. Those same gods you encounter in the Hebrew Bible as Adat El, council of God, also Elohim, gods, plural. Those same gods that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us about. You encounter them in ancient Kemetic, ancient Egyptian writings, the Pa'ut Neter, the council of the gods. It's the same as the black God. A council, a closed circle of gods that are the rulers, the divine rulers, not just of this planet, but of the universe. We'll get to that shortly. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us the real, down-to-earth understanding of them. We encounter them in religious poetic language in all of their traditions. So, the Anunnaki is Sumerian, a Sumerian term that does not mean, as Zachariah Sitchin took license to translate, those who from heaven to earth came, because he wants to make them aliens who originated off planet and came to this planet. That's not what the Sumerian or Akkadian variations of that term means. It simply means offspring or bloodline of the god An. Now, what I show A-N, but what I show in my book, Keys, is An, as the Sumerians are likely The Sumerian language likely is rooted in a Niger-Congo language group from West Africa. They migrated to Arabia, indigenized there in Arabia before moving up north and settling in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. That name An, the chief god of the Sumerians, the father of the Anunnaki, that Sumerian word An is a Sumerianization of the global name Allah. An is Allah linguistically and conceptually. So when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says the black man is God and his name is Allah, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says there's a council, there's a circle of gods who rule the cosmos and they collectively are called Allah, that is in total agreement with the data from Sumer or Sumeria. The Anunnaki are the gods derived from An, whose original name is Allah. Now, the word An, the reason we don't hear Allah is because in linguistics, and I had to, in my doctoral work, I was forced to be somewhat of a linguist. My program required that I study 5 languages in order to proceed in the program. I had to learn Arabic, Biblical Hebrew, French, and German, as well as English. And what that did was bathed me in historical linguistics and the science of the evolution of language and seams of semantics. An, the god of the Anunnaki, the divine wellspring of the Anunnaki that everybody is talking about. The name An, its original phonetics was ALA, pronounced ALA, but written AL. The L, through a linguistic process called nasalization, the L became an N. So from Al, the 2 letters, but pronounce the second letter, it gives that plosive, Allah. But through nasalization, the original L became an N. So we speak of Anu rather than Allah. So, who are the Anunnaki? The Anunnaki are the black gods that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has taught us about, the black gods whose proper name is Allah.
This one got the isolate CBD, the black seed oil, the MCT oil, and the lion's mane powder. I think it's too much in here. I think we need to we gotta calm this product down. It's too much. It's too much. Bro, I took this and I was going all day. Ain't nobody got that much work to get done in a day where they need to be taking Supermind. Like, what if you a house mom and all of a sudden you get everything done in one day and you ain't got nothing to do the rest of the week? I took this, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with the rest of my life. I feel like I done got everything done. I was up, right. I ain't gonna lie, I feel like I changed the world 1,000 times on this. I done figured out every single plan. The next thing I need to have is patience, because I done planned everything. I done did everything I could do in a day. I'm serious. Like, I think we put too much in here. We need to cut down the ingredient list, and we need to make this regular mind, because this is like Viagra for the brain. What is nasalization as far as the process of going from AL to AN? Like, what is that process?
So
to understand?
There's certain letters that are called liquid.
Mm-hmm.
They're liquid letters because they're malleable. They easily change among themselves, though the key liquid letters are L, R, and N. And I engaged in a significant and I think very productive scholarly debate with a scholar because in my book, Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam, I proposed that the Egyptian Ra, the Egyptian sun god Ra, is an Egyptianization of the original Arabian god Allah from the same process because R is a liquid letter. The same process that transformed Allah into An in Sumer transformed Allah into Ra in Egypt. The L, when the L changes to a R, it's a process called rotization. When an R or an N transforms into a L, that's called lateralization. It becomes a lateral, an L. When an L or an R transforms into an N, that's called nasalization. And of course, there's certain other phonetic or linguistic circumstances that would force such a change, right? That would force an L in Arabia to become an R in ancient Egypt, or an L in Arabia to become an N in West Africa or in Sumeria. So this is the linguistic process that has hid the name Allah, which is the universal name of God across the black world. Nkulunkulu. We speak of the Zulus. The Zulus of South Africa, a very powerful black nation, especially the pre-colonial Zulus. Their chief god, Nkulunkulu, a black god. At the root of that name, Nkulunkulu, is Allah. Nkulu. Allah, the great, great Allah. The same nasalization process transformed Allah into Nkulunkulu in Western Africa as it transformed Allah into An in Sumer or Ra in Egypt. This is how liquid letters are fluid and transform in and out of each other. And so the most universal name of God, when we as Muslims, as I'm sitting here with the star and crescent, as you have the star and crescent on your hat representing Islam, we are not presenting a foreign God to black people. When we say all praises are due to Allah, we are reminding black people of the God that the whole black world acknowledged before circumstance, the Tower of Babel, confused the languages. And so Allah changed into very different words. My last thought is, so I hear people claiming Anunnaki, and by claiming Anunnaki, that's supposed to represent some greater enlightenment, and then have a whole bunch of negative stuff to say about us religious people talking about Allah and Jesus. You're not religious. You don't talk about Allah. You enlightened. You talk about Anunnaki. See, that person needs some revision of his or her thinking, because what you don't know by citing the Anunnaki, you are ipso facto praising Allah. So who's the real enlightened one? The one who went straight to it without the confusion. Allah is God, and he was God in Sumer, he was God in Kemet, he was God, the black God, all across the world. That's the Anunnaki. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gives us the key to unlock all of those mysteries. Now, you're asking about the fabricated, so that's a true.
Before we get to the fabricated, because you brought up some very interesting points. One episode, I'm going to definitely have to just dive into, the phonetics and the linguistic investigation into things, because I think that gets into a good subject. Same way we look at, Jesus and Yahweh, right? But when you look at, people mispronounce words on purpose, or a lot of times because it's more comfortable for them to do so. There's Negroes in places right now allowing people to misinterpret their name or pronounce their name because it's easier for them to do so. And so it sounds more of an assimilatory process, right? That gets carried over to where in this culture, because it's easier for us to enunciate it, right? Then we're going to speak it in its true words. Like I meet people all the time and they tell me their name and they'll be happy with a close variation of it. Right. And I'm like, no, I want to say it right. And so I'm trying to get into people's mind how you can understand the process of how words and vowels and different things change as they're taken on by different people, and how it's easier for them to pronounce that. And so then when they're explaining it to someone else, they're going on with that assimilated, translated version of it. And then that becomes the context in which people view this new word or this truth, right? Going from an owl to an un or a ra, right? Or a Yahweh to a Jesus, right? So I want people to kind of think about their own experiences with that and how words get changed. And we're talking about over regions, right? As a word travels, right? From different cultures and different places, and how they would have to pronounce that.
And in time.
Right. And not having always the tools to decipher different languages. So if their language is different, then they're going to find a way to say it, to try to extract, right, that same consonant and construct the vowel, but in their way. That makes it especially easier. You're not going to go for the harder deciphering. You're going to go for the easiest translation so that you can enunciate it. And, even though Allah, right, is very easy, right, but you have to have a certain level of understanding of language across time and how people carry over different words. Which is something I want people to get into their minds, because we're talking a lot about root knowledge here and root understanding of things.
Root knowledge, very important. Word and concept.
So now, to me, this challenge is the root knowledge and understanding of God, right? And it's funny because as people deal with Anunnaki, they are challenging every other aspect of religious texts, right? And then all of a sudden they get a belief that they now have this superior knowledge and that everything else, right, is a version of this particular history, right? So we go to ancient Kemet, we go to all these different places and they say, well, this is just a story depicting this all over again, right? So that's why I find this Anunnaki conversation is so important, because when you get to the root and saying that, no, we're not changing anything, right? We're reverting it back to its original form. And we're telling you that pass through all of this language, all of this context, all these assimilated versions and changes, here was the root of it. And your thesis and after you give us the Zechariah and Stitch version, and I'm kind of jumping over, but it's on my mind, I want to go into the root word of black. I want to go into the root word of, even though we just went into the root word of God, but let's go into the root word of man. Because the thesis of, the root thesis coming from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the black man is God. So I want to go into that understanding after we get to this history.
Great. That's going to be a very fruitful part of the discussion. So I want tarry too long on the falsehood. We want to stay with truth as long as we can, but it is necessary to draw and point out the distinction.
Yes, sir.
Now, you earlier said something very important I would like to highlight. We get very protective toward the people we like. Much of what passes as scholarship, unfortunately, and especially with us, is really ideology. So, if we offer a factual correction to a scholar beloved by many, we are considered blasphemous. When I wrote Black Arabia and the African origin of Islam, as an academic, I had to take to task Dr. Yosef Ben Yakub, Dr. Chancellor Williams, and Dr. John Henry Clark. Of course, this is the pantheon of Black studies. And I am a student of theirs. I love them. I sucked from their output, but where they were wrong, where their material was dated in terms of Islam, the origin of Islam, I offered a respectful correction, but I was considered as an cultural apostate. I was guilty of cultural treason. Why? Because I dared to say these great scholars did a wonderful work, but here, and here, they were wrong and dated. But we did it because it has to be done. Zachariah Sitchin, because his paradigm has been made dominant in a U.S. government intelligence apparatus, helped to make the Zachariah Sitchin paradigm dominant. It served, his narrative served the disinformation objectives of the U.S. government. So it's dominant. But a lot of people are emotionally wedded to his thesis. And this thesis, there's some good in it. There's white supremacy in it. And there's simple bad scholarship in it, and there's great scholarship in it. He, Zachariah Sitchin, wants us to believe, and those who follow him do believe and insist that the Anunnaki aren't black gods from Arabia, which they are. That they are, in fact, alien beings from an exoplanet, a planet outside of the solar system, and these beings, and you get a whole spectrum of depictions of Zachariah Sitchin's Anunnaki. You got them as blue with beaks. You got them as white. That's the most dominant depiction. The movie Prometheus solidified the image of Zachariah Sitchin's Anunnaki as white-skinned, blue-eyed extraterrestrials. That movie was based on the Sitchin paradigm of the Anunnaki. So you see the Anunnaki as white skin, you will see them as blue skin or red skin. You won't see them until just recently, since I have been beating this drum. You never saw them as black skinned gods. They're doing that now because we kicked in the door with this. But you would never see the Anunnaki in their true color as black-skinned gods. And that's not me. That's not religion talking. The texts are very clear. On the father of the Anunnaki, he was represented in a very particular way as a black bull, because the black bull symbolized the most dominant of the gods. And the reason the bull had to be black is because the hide, the black hide of the bull represented the black skin of the god An. And so it was the black Kiskano tree. The Kiskano tree, an ancient Sumerian tree, it came in many colors, and in particular, there's a black version, there was a gray version, there was a brown version of the tree, but the Sumerian texts are very clear. It's the black Kiskano tree, the tree with the black bark that represents the god, because the black bark of the tree, like the black hide of the bull, represents the black skin of the god. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the gods were black, and that is what the Sumerian texts and the Akkadian texts and even the Assyrian texts, a very important chapter in that the Assyrians and the Babylonians are the white heirs in Mesopotamia of the black Sumerians and black Akkadians. The white the white Assyrians and the white Babylonians, when they invaded that area, they engaged in a very important ritual, state ritual, in which the Assyrian, which was a reenactment of the white god of the Assyrians, Bel, how he killed and conquered the black god of the Sumerians and Akkadians. And in this ritual reenactment of this war of the gods, the white god Bel or Asar versus the black god An, in the ritual reenactment, they brought in a black bull, and the ritual requirements are very clear. The bull that's chosen for this reenactment had to be black as pitch. The ritual professionals had to examine the bull to make sure there is not so much as 7 white hairs on his hide. And during the ritual, the Assyrian ritual, the pitch black bull is slaughtered. His heart is torn out and thrown against the wall. He is flayed. His skin is flayed, and a drum is made from the skin, and the skin is bleached white. And the ritual texts say that the slaughtered bull, black as asphalt, black as pitch, is the god Anu, and his sons, the Annunaki, who were slaughtered by the god Assyria, the god Bel. So the blackness of the Anunnaki is critical to the civilizational development that took place there. The Assyrians and the Babylonians knew, as well as the Sumerians and the Akkadians, that these gods are black. It's just the modern students of Zechariah's 6 who don't know or didn't know until we pointed it out to them. They did not come from, Sitchin says they come from heaven to earth. So he mistranslates the term Anunnaki because he wants to make them extraterrestrial. Everybody is robbing the black man of earth from all of our birthrights. White people are much more comfortable. As soon as they are confronted with the reality of us, they instinctively take it off planet. Zechariah Sitchin is a party to that deception. I don't know his motive. I don't know if his upbringing in Israel had any role in that, but his paradigm is wrong. His paradigm, the Atra Hashis, the Sumerian text, I've heard students of his cite the Atra Hashis, a creation text of the ancient Sumerians, cite this text as evidence, and they import into the text claims of Zechariah Sitchin, a reference to a Mars breakaway planet. That's nowhere in these texts. I got several versions, several editions of these texts, and they're nowhere to be found. What's amazing to me is the liberty that we so casually take with this material, as if there's nobody in real life who got this stuff in their library. It really amazes me, the liberties that we take with this material. So when we actually put eyes on the material, if you knew the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you will instantly see the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad there. You will see how these teachings shed light on this material. But if you are too enlightened, if you are unaware of the teachings, then it's easy to enter these rabbit holes and get tripped up and get lost.
So when he spoke upon the breakaway planet of the Mars, and I see sometimes people speak on that as they believe that it's these planets coming back around and Annunaki being stuck, but when it gets close enough, they will hop back over here.
Yeah, that ain't nowhere in the material. I'm going to say that emphatically and challenge those who make that claim. Show that in any of the Sumerian texts. That ain't in Atra Hashi.
So what about the golden being used in the particle to ionize it so that their atmosphere is similar to ours, right? But what you assert in your documentation is that they had the same atmosphere as us because they were human.
Yes. When you say they who?
The Anunnakis.
Yes, because they are human. Now, let's talk about Mars. There is a civilization on Mars. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us of the civilization on Mars and the people, the black people of Mars. They did not originate here and go there. We, the black gods of Asia, planet Earth, we planted them there. We genetically engineered them there. We are the father of all life in the universe. But the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, Brother Keys, that Allah, God, showed forth his power by creating 9 planets, each in their own sphere, and none of the 9 planets are made from the same material. When he created the second planet, he did not take material from the first planet to do it. All 9 planets, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, are made from different matter. All 9 planets have different size, different color. He said that this was how Allah showed forth his power. He could create 9 planets in their own independent spheres and not have to rely on any previous planet. He said the civilizations of these planets are independent and different now regarding Mars. He said the people on Mars are similar in some respects to us on Earth. They are black. They are taller than us. He said they are a bit taller and skinnier than the black man and woman on Earth. They are similar to us, but the Martian atmosphere was created so distinct from Earth's atmosphere. Biologically, there can be no cross-pollination, if you will. The Martian, no black Martian can come to Earth and exist in this environment. No black man from Earth can go to Mars and exist in that atmosphere or any of the 9 planets. Each planet Allah made it independent and hermetically sealed in the sense we can interact, but we can't exist there. We talk about terraforming, but ain't no terraforming occurred. Certainly not at the level where there can be cultural exchanges, biological exchanges between the planets. So there is civilization on Mars. What my point is, not that there is not a civilization on Mars. My point is we are wrong to point to ancient Sumerian texts to say that that civilization originated from Anunnaki fleeing from Earth, having originally come to Earth from Nibiru. All of that is fancy. It is not. All of that is fiction fancy. And the students have embellished that. And that's fine. But call it what it is, creative writing. It's not authenticated by the text. It's a paradigm that white people enjoy.
Did Zachariah Stitchin wasn't the first to interpret it? Did the people who interpreted before him have similar findings?
No, Sitchin paradigm, absolutely not. And Sumerologists, actual scholars of ancient Sumeria, from the beginning have been dismissing Sitchin's narrative from the beginning. It is not, let me be real clear, it's not that everything in his overall, his body of work is foundationless. That's not the case. It's not. There are aspects of his work that's very consistent with the data, and that's fine. But the crux of the Sitchin paradigm, his presentation of the Anunnaki, is very wrong. And it is in large measure totally unsupported by the Sumerian material. License was taken. And so those who are wedded to his paradigm, while they would refer or reference the text, they can't show in those texts what they claim to be referencing.
So the main claims that he have, right, is the Anunnaki origin, the genetic engineering, the gold mining, and the planet Nibiru. So, number one, he says that is the 12th planet. So that is incorrect?
So, I don't know if there is an exoplanet. The fact of the matter is, I would assume that there's many exoplanets.
Right.
There's
But
many
he claims
planets.
that to be the home of the
That's where, see, so that's where he is in error. Not, so you asked me about the 12th planet.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say he's wrong that there is a 12th planet.
Yes, sir.
He is wrong by saying the ancient Sumerian texts posit the origin of the Anunnaki on that 12th planet. That he is wrong.
And so I just want to go through these. Gold mining, according to Stitchin, is a primary reason for the Anunnaki
And that's
presence.
nowhere in the text. There's no mention. You can do all of the Mesopotamian literature is available and accessible online, and you can search the literature for keywords, and nowhere will you find a reference in the literature of Anunnaki looking for gold. That is nowhere in the literature. But of course, This is important to his overall narrative. This is supposedly the reason the Anunnaki had to leave their home planet, Nibiru, the exoplanet. They came looking for gold. They found it on Earth. They landed on Earth. And for some Africans, eventually found, well, the Anunnaki were forced to mine the gold in Africa, the lower Anunnaki. But they got tired. So they found an ape-man, a hominid in Southern Africa, touched him up and produced, what a jump, white humanity. Because all of the books and depictions of that moment of the Anunnaki creating humans, they have this white Adam. And Zechariah Sitchin said, yeah, they created us. He's talking to, interviewed by a white woman, said, yeah, they created us, not us. So you got this African hominid that these extraterrestrial gods, I don't know, blue, green, everything but black, genetically manipulated this African hominid, and produced this white Adam. See, now, of course, there is no reference in Atra Hashish that is at the root of this narrative. Atra Hashish, the Mesopotamian text, does depict the Anunnaki creating man but they slayed a god. And the Mesopotamian texts say the name of the god responsible for this was Allah, and his gods who rebelled against the other Anunnaki, and from whose blood the new man was made, the Lulu was made, that God and those gods, they were Allah gods. So a group of Allah gods, and the leader of the group was a rebel. The rest of the Anunnaki considered the leader of that group a rebel. They mutinied against the greater gods. The greater gods killed that Allah, the leader, and the Allah gods, and from their blood. And then it says they took something, it doesn't say what it was, took something, mixed it with the blood, and that's what was used to produce Lulu, the primitive man. Nowhere is there a suggestion that it's a hominid that was used. No, it was the blood of these Allah gods. It mutinied against the greater gods and was slaughtered. And from their blood, the primitive worker was made. And it is true that primitive worker, that creation, was the white man 6,000 years ago. Because the texts say that not only the blood of the rebel god called Allah and his Allah gods was made to produce the physical physiology of this new man, but the spirit and mind, the rebellious mind of that rebel god was put into the new creation, the new man. So the new man personifies the rebellious spirit, the rebellion against God's spirit was put in the new man. So it's okay, Mr. Sitchin, to point to your people as that to which the text refer, but get the narrative right. The narrative is these black gods, a group of black gods rebelled against the hierarchy of the gods. And those black gods were Allah gods. And the rebel who led that rebellion. His blood and his rebellious spirit was used to make the new people. And that is absolutely the white man, his spirit of rebellion. He is the personification, the physical incarnation of that spirit of rebellion against the black God. Which is why, of course, the Assyrians ritualized their not just rebellion, but their war against and slaughter of not just the black, lowly black gods, but the king of the gods, An or Allah himself.
So I want to get into, well, I guess you properly, I think, explain black, right? And especially in the terms. There's a lot of debate about the word black, right? From a legal standpoint, right? And then I guess from a descriptive one, right? So as we use the word black, first, when did the word black come into origin? Do you know?
I do not. I don't know what that is. Before we leave, Annunaki, can I say something? You know, this conversation, the last time I was honored to be on your platform.
Yes, sir.
We had a very high level conversation about the circle of gods called the 12 major signs.
Mm-hmm.
And in that conversation, I made a reference to the Shura Executive Council of the Nation of Islam, on which I and 11 of my brothers and sisters are blessed to sit, all of us, of course, believers in the Nation of Islam. The Shura Executive Council is the governing body, for those most don't know. It's the governing body of the Nation of Islam under the divine direction and guidance of the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. He personally selected each of us to be on that council. I would like, if I may, to
Yes, sir.
Offer some context, some clarity, and even some correction to my words, if you don't mind.
Not at all. I wanted to get into that anyway.
First, context. The teachings of Master Fard Muhammad, Allah in a person. The teachings that he brought and the life that he requires of us. Their aim is to make those of us who follow the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, make us into gods equal to the 12 gods of the East. Their replacement, the replacement of those gods of the East, is coming up out of the black man and woman of the West, of America. That is our destiny. Now, the process to transform the so-called Negro, probably the lowliest human creation or human creature ever produced. I didn't say the black man, I said the so-called Negro in America. Probably the lowliest human creature produced. The process of transforming him, us, into the greatest gods that ever lived, equal to the scientists of the East. That process is a long process. It's a generational process. Of course, you have to be in it to win it. We have to be in the process to achieve the reward of the process. My words, let me see. If we stay in the process, those of us who stay in the process, stay in the classroom of God, we each help push Black people closer to that ultimate goal of being transformed into the greatest gods on the earth. It's a very long process. My words last time I was blessed to be on your show, I could have, I think, given the wrong impression that those of us on the council are further, more advanced in this process than we actually are.
Yes, sir.
You know? And I should disabuse us of that wrong impression. The brothers and sisters of the Shura Executive Council, we just come up out of the mud. We are not of the generation that has achieved that summum bonum they used to say in Egypt. That grade is good, that ultimate goal. When we deliberate, we gather to deliberate over the important affairs of the Nation of Islam. But we don't gather to get up the history of the world for the next 25,000 years. Those gods do. We don't do that because we can't do that. And of course, that would go without saying, but in this case, it should be said or reiterated. But in the future, Black men and women from America will have that ability, will have the power of the greatest gods. That's just not us today. So, my words the last time may have been a bit misleading, and in the Nation of Islam, mistakes shall not exist among the laborers of Islam. Not that mistakes aren't made, they are every day. But when we make a mistake, we correct it. That is the culture of Islam as taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So I wanted to do that.
Yes, sir.
To correct my words that gave a misleading impression of myself, maybe, and those of us who constitute the Executive Council today, the Shura Executive Council today. But of course, my mind was on the brothers and sisters of tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Who will have the divine status to replace the old gods, but we have not achieved that yet. So I wanted to clarify that, and thank you for allowing me to do so.
It's actually a very beautiful thought once you think about it. Because when you talk about bloodlines, right, and what's needed for there to be a generation, right, that makes, quite frankly, everything that we've been through worth it. Because and when you think about planning 25,000 years, you then have to think about these cycles, right? Because as you were saying that, I was thinking like, wow, what does it take to actually plan for 25,000 years? Right. And one can only think in cosmic cycles to get to those points, right? At the highest level. But the way that you described it, as the greatest good, right? That to me has me thinking about the cleanest generation to ever be in existence. And the requirements out of that, where I can see as we living in present day, we couldn't claim it because the DNA, right, is the claim itself. And if we still working to clean out our DNA, right, from our inheritance from our mother and our father and the grandparents and grandparents and so on and so forth.
Epigenetic inheritance.
Exactly. Then we couldn't, regardless of how exalted we become in life or how clean we become in life, we still aren't the generation.
That is right.
That is the representation of the complete existence of that.
That is correct.
So the beauty of it, having the responsibility to create a future generation, right? That is a representation of us cleaning out ourselves, purifying our DNA, installing, right? Because we talk about, genetically engineering, but the way you genetically engineer, right, a people is first cleaning yourself giving them the knowledge of self in the world. So when they're born, they're born more intelligent. They're born with a higher moral code. They're born with divine righteousness. They're born with the codes of their mother and their father. So their epigenetic inheritance is already a divine right.
Absolutely.
That was sold into them through your actions.
Absolutely.
So it actually makes it more beautiful because then we think about, the dominance of time, right? Rather than the dominance of space, right? And saying that your works are always more than you. Right? Because you're dominating time more righteous that you are. So that if you have generations, because within my own family, I can see the seeds of karma that come from, bad genetic inheritance, right? So many things that we have to clean from ourselves, right? And whether it's mental issues, whether it's drug use, right? Whatever it may be, there's a lot of work that has to be done. You may deal with just your environment and the issues and problems that you have, and maybe you've mentally, been able to exceed those issues, but now you have to deal with your inherited issues.
You know what comes to mind? You raised such an important concept, which brings to mind the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's self-description, description of himself as Yakub in reverse. What does that mean? What you just described was the necessity for us to have a righteous eugenics project.
Yes, sir.
To counter the dysgenics project that this world has Black people trapped in. We have to distinguish those two words and concepts. White folks don't have a eugenics plan for Black people. They have been operating off of a eugenics plan for themselves. White people have a dysgenics plan and have been operating and have had us trapped in a dysgenics plan. Now, of course, what is dysgenics? Eugenics, of course, is selective breeding to enhance positive traits, to breed in a superior human being by selecting for positive traits. Dysgenics is the opposite. It's the selective breeding to enhance negative degenerate traits to produce a degenerate human being. The only eugenics plan they had for Black people is sterilization and abortion. Just kill Black babies. Don't let them come into being so those Black babies won't interfere with my white bloodline that I am eugenically enhancing. For us, they put us in environmental circumstances, waging war by zip code, trapped us in environments. The whole landscape is poison. The air is poison. The water that's directed, that's funneled to our zip code is poison. The food that is funneled to our zip code is poison. So all this poisoning and the teaching of sexuality to us in a way that does not give birth to gods, but give birth to savages and beasts. This is a trap that they deliberately put us in as part of their dysgenics project. So they want us, they legalizing marijuana, this weaponized marijuana state by state, and they're encouraging us to go ahead and partake, knowing what it is doing, not just diminishing the sperm count, but how it's changing the quality of our sperm. And by diminishing the quality of the sperm, you are diminishing the quality of the human being that will be produced from that sperm. That's dysgenics. We have been trapped in a dysgenics project. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad is Yakub in reverse. See, white people were created via a dysgenics project. Yakub and the gods that grafted white people. He focused on the weak, wicked, deficient part of the original man and enhanced that, producing the Caucasian race. Yakub's was a dysgenics project. They were produced from a dysgenics project. And so it was very poetic. They knew what they were doing when they trapped us in a dysgenics project. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he's Yakub in reverse, because the original Yakub, dysgenics. This Yakub, eugenics for the black man and woman of America. The lifestyle that God requires of us, that he represents to us, is a lifestyle to do exactly what you said. It's going to purify us. Over generations, the bad traits that were bred in the so-called Negro, it's going to be bred out. The negativity that was grafted in the so-called Negro will be grafted out by this process, by this lifestyle. And so eventually a generation will be produced. It will be pure like that. And that generation would not only rival the gods of the East, but replace the gods of the East. For at that point, the sun would truly have risen in the West and outshine the sun of the East.
When I think about that, just that idea within itself, and how intentional we would have to be when it comes to breeding, and the bigger issues that we face in society.
It's very important to be intentional with breeding.
Very intentional. But we're very unintentional.
We're very
today
unintentional
when it comes to breeding.
all us accidents, right?
So you think about, you gear up a son and a daughter, and they're geniuses. I mean, you raise them to be so godly, and then they make a choice of being with someone who is not their match, right? And so now, in a sense of a way, that they are mating with somebody, right, who is not a genetic match for that godly breed. But the level of intentionality is not at that depth to where we're thinking, do we pair, right? And do we match at a genetic level, right? What is your bloodline? What is my child going to inherit? What psychological issues, right? And
That's
I think
how the
that,
gods breathe.
and this is the thinking that we would have to get into if we were to be a more serious people.
Absolutely.
Right? And
absolutely.
if we're thinking and begin to thinking, because this is at least 50 years ahead, 100 years thinking.
But that's the teaching of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
He taught us selective breeding. Thus, the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan produced the series, How to Give Birth to a God.
That's what my mother was listening to. She had me.
The teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the lifestyle required of us is the prescription for exactly what you are outlining.
Yes, sir. The science of mating.
The science of mating.
My mother was, she tells me all the time, that's what she was listening to when she had me.
It's no,
not
hard. We get it. We see it.
Yes, sir.
We get it.
I want more people to get it because, the Nation of Islam has an impeccable track record, right, of raising gods. And I want to start right there, gods. First, we start with singular God, right? What is the meaning of God? Oftentimes, when we had these conversations with people around the world, I always stop them when they ask me questions. Are you a Muslim? What does God mean? First, I have to know what your definition of it is, because I'm not sure we having a
What exactly are you asking me?
Exactly. Right. Because most people are constructing their reality around connotations and not definitions.
Absolutely.
So it has to be defined for us to be having the same conversation.
Absolutely.
So I want to establish the baseline, right?
Appropriate.
Starting off with, what is God?
Yes, sir. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us the definition of a God. A God is a being of power and force. God, the supreme being, is that one who has supreme power and supreme force. Now, scientifically, power and force are not synonymous. A God who has supreme power and force, scientifically, when you break down the words mean it's the being who can impose its will on the world around him, and nothing in the world around him can frustrate his will. He's an action that can be done that no reaction can frustrate. That's God, a being of power and force, and the supreme being is that one who can impose his will, exercise his will anywhere in the universe, and nothing in the universe can obstruct, oppose, or frustrate his will, because they don't have the power to do so. That's God. Now note that the definition of God as given by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a being of power and force, it did not come with adjectives such as good or bad. Because the devil is a god. He's a being of power and force. In fact, he's the god of this world. But he uses his power and force toward wicked aims. That's what makes him devil. If he used his power and force toward righteous ends, then he would not be a devil. He would be a righteous God, but he was not created of such nature. So that's the definition of God that I operate with.
Now, what about the small g, plural, when it comes to gods, right? Because when a person hears you call yourself a god, they believe that you're exalting yourself on his throne and saying that I am the creator of all of the worlds. So when you call yourself a god, what do you mean?
Yeah. So I've written about what I call, or what has been called, the divine hierarchy. There's a hierarchy within the divine. All gods ain't created equal.
Yes, sir.
So the signature, essential proof text of this concept is Psalms 82. Ye are all gods. Important, but that's just the first part. Ye are all gods, children of the Most High God. All gods ain't created equal, but all are God. So there's a hierarchy within divinity. So just in this room, as I look around, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm in the room. There are 8 bona fide gods in this room. All of us don't have the same power and force.
Yes, sir.
All of us have a power that the rest of us ain't got. So I use the language as we use the Black God Protocol.
Yes, sir.
So there is a sphere in which, in this room, I'm the Most High God. There is a sphere in which, in this room, you're the Most High God, or you're the Most High God, or you're the Most High God, or at least a higher God.
Yes, sir.
Than the rest of us in this room in that particular sphere. It's a divine hierarchy. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad went even further. Not only said all of us are gods, he said all Muslims are Allahs. See, he even pluralized Allah. All Muslims, righteous persons, are Allah. See, the devil can be a god, but he cannot be an Allah. You have to be a Muslim. You have to be a righteous person, a righteous God, to be an Allah. So all of us are gods, but there is the Supreme Being. And the mistake that we want to, for dear life, avoid making is the Luciferian mistake, the mistake that Lucifer made. Yes, I'm God, but know my place in the divine hierarchy. If I seek to sit in the seat of the Most High God as Lucifer, son of the morning star, did, then his fate will be our fate. So there is always a supreme God. I came from the 5% nation. That's my journey in Islam. It began as a 5%er. And then I made a conscious decision to join the military training of men who belong to Islam in North America. What I would say to my brothers and sisters, but my brothers in particular, of the 5% now NGE, or Nation of Gods and Earth, divinity is not democratic in that way. Like, we tend to operate as 5%ers, meaning all gods are the same. Ain't no hierarchy. Ain't no leader. Ain't no God greater. Ain't no supreme being. No. Truth, divine truth isn't democratic in that sense. Divine truth is very theocratic. There is a supreme God, and all of us are gods, but we are not the supreme God. So we follow the instruction and the leadership of the supreme God. And the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan is not the supreme God. Master Allah, in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, is. He raised up the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is the most powerful human being outside of him on the planet. But neither one of them are among us today. The Supreme One being a power and force among us today, whose divinity is real and thus whose divine guidance and direction is necessary for Black people. That is the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. So people look at me and ask, how can I see it on social media? I like that Dr. Wesley, he got so much knowledge, but why he with Farrakhan? Why he in the nation? He'll be much greater. You a fool. And I would be an even greater fool if I listened to you and followed your counsel. I look better and sound better than I actually am because I'm plugged in to the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, who is the socket of divinity on the earth that we need to plug in to. That's a fact. I know we don't like that because this is the IG era, right? IG. It's all about me. It's all about me. And it is about you to a certain extent, but we don't, or to a certain level. Above that level, it ain't about you anymore. Above that level, it ain't about me anymore. To really realize, I said there's 8 gods in here. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. To truly realize each of our God potential. Bruh, we can't do that on our own. We cannot. We will get so far, we will be good, and we'll be good enough where we may look great, but we ain't really great. Greatness requires us being plugged in to divinity. We got to be plugged in. So, does that mean that all of us have to register in the Nation of Islam? No, it's not. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the Nation of Islam was never set up to be a mass movement. All Black people are in the Nation of Islam. All Black people are born by nature Muslim, but all Black people are not expected to come through the doors of our mosque. The mosque was never set up for that. It was always, the mosque was always for the few who will suffer the hardships of this life necessary to produce the gods that will replace those gods. You got to suffer that life now. Absent that, you can still plug in to the God among us. And by doing so, your godhood will be enhanced by listening to the mouth of God, because the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan speaks God's will to and for Black people, all Black people. So he's the reason a lot of Black people preserved their health during this COVID crime. In particular, the COVID vaccine crime. Because because God through him instructed Black people, don't take the vaccine. And now he's 1,000,000% vindicated. And we stood alone through his voice. All of the Black medical establishment was mad at the minister in the nation. The sky is falling. COVID's going to kill all Black people. And Black people were dying disproportionately. And out of fear, the Black medical establishment said, Farrakhan, why are you being irresponsible telling Black people not to take that vaccine? But now, those who took it, they're dropping dead. That vaccine was a weapon. So that's an example of how all Black people, if you plug in to divinity inhumanity among us, then that helps to enhance our divinity. Because when we put that vaccine in us, that medical or military technology, those spikes reproduced in us. So we're talking about dysgenics. Imagine what that does to our physiological effort to be God. But if we listen to God's command through the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan and did not submit our body to that weapon, that fact alone puts us in a better position to advance the generational process of purifying the black man and woman in America en route to making us the greatest gods that ever lived.
That gets me to thinking about this culture that we have, right? Because there are so many different things that are against us. I mean, a lot. And it requires, such a cleansing in a way where, yes, it becomes suffering because you have to give up all that you once knew, right?
Whole bunch of thou shalt not do's and better do's.
The way you eat, the way you drink, the way you walk, the way you talk.
Hard to be God.
Where you go, every single thing has to be changed.
Absolutely.
Right? And first I wanted to get to, before we get past the God subject, well, the whole subject is the God subject, but you talked about in your book, ditheism. If I'm pronouncing that right?
Ditheism.
Now, there is a classic quotes out here today, and I would even call it a movement, that the black woman is God, right? But in the idea of ditheism, if you will, it's this idea that there can be two equally, right, yoked gods. So, in the context of this, number one, how did
the yoked gods? I like how you put it. We're careful with your language. Very good.
How does the black woman see herself, right, in the divinity of being a god? Because now the correlation is that she believes she is God, right? And in that belief, it is a God a step above the black man, right? In the way that he calls himself a God. And there's not much, number one, with this new age belief, and I think a lot of brothers just spread this as game, to be honest with you. I think it's just high level manipulation, because it doesn't leave much room for cooperation and collaboration. And I don't see much nation building going on in that capacity, right? I think that it more so falls into the effeminate agenda of the black man. And there's a high degree of suffering that the black man is going through. And I believe it's because he's not able to exalt himself to who he know he is. When you have an environment that is completely against your own belief in self, right? It causes depression, stress, anxiety, right? To be a fearless man in America and have to constantly assimilate at every single turn, it makes people go crazy.
Absolutely.
Because you walk around in the world saying that I'm a God, but you can't manifest your
cognitive dissonance is murderous.
Yes, sir. And you put it very well, frustrating your will. Right? Because I believe that that's what it is. It's a frustration of one trying to impose their will.
That's right.
And this constant
and totally
fight.
failing. Right.
And it's like, wait a minute. I know who I am. I kill somebody that stop playing with.
Yeah.
And this is what happens. And
That's
it ends up
exactly
becoming an eternal battle.
Absolutely.
Because you don't have the external ability to impose your will. So now you're trying to force this, and as much of your environment within self and your closeness of environment within your relationship, your home, and that becomes toxic because it's not a proper outlet.
Absolutely.
Right? So I want you to first, if you can explain ditheism.
Yes, sir.
Right? And then go into how the black woman sees herself as a God in connection or in collaboration with the black man.
Yeah. So first, let's divine define terms.
Yes, sir.
Monotheism, one God. Ditheism, two gods. History of religions, jargon, language. So what's the significance? And what is the truth of the matter? What is a truth that exposes as errant the movement which I have been academically deconstructing, movement that I call the African matriarchal mother goddess religion. The African, not just the African goddess or black woman, she is a god. She is of ditheism, she is that second god of the two.
Yes, sir.
But the errant idea called the African matriarchal mother goddess religion, the pseudo scholarship that claims that all of these religious traditions started out worshiping a goddess, and with the rise of patriarchy, these goddesses were transformed into a male god. Of course, some of our Afrocentric scholars made that false claim regarding Islam. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his family worshiped the goddess Alat, and he, driven by his patriarchal spirit, transformed the female goddess Alat into the male god Allah. Now, I deconstructed that myth in my book, Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam. It's totally bogus. Prophet Muhammad's, his name is Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Muhammad ibn, son of who? Son of his father. What's his father's name? Abdullah. Abdullah. What does Abdullah mean? Servant of Allah? No. Servant of Allah. In other words, Prophet Muhammad's father, his name was servant of Allah before Muhammad was born. So Prophet Muhammad could not have originated the male god Allah. When he came into the world, his father's name was derived from Allah. What is the truth of the matter? The truth of the matter, we get a nice hint of it in the Quran, where it is mentions this single soul, that Allah created this single soul, and from it, its mate. And from these two, all men and women derive. The single soul. What is the single soul? I think it's in Arabic, nas wahida. What is the single soul from which its mate was made? And then from these two now, all men and women are the project. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan gives the tafsir, the proper tafsir or exegesis or understanding of that passage. The single soul is Allah, the original man. Allah himself, the first man in existence. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that after Allah, the first man, created himself in triple darkness, the first feeling he felt was loneliness. So he studied himself and found a second self within him. That X chromosome. And he brought the second self out and gave it form, and we have the first black woman. That's ditheism. The first God, the black man, and the first goddess, if you will. the black woman before there was a sun, moon, and stars. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches there is the black woman. She did not precede the black man who created her, but she preceded everything else in creation. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that she, the black woman, is God's second self, and he, the black man, is God's first self. So that's proper ditheism. The black man is God and the black woman is a God too. That is a fact. It is important to maintain the divine hierarchies, but let's be clear. In Islam, the culture of Islam on the ground strives to reflect the culture of Islam in the heavens, if you will, among the gods. So, the black man, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, is the head of the household. Now, you describe that the toxicity in a black home because we have a real Game of Thrones underway in the black home where there is a black man and a black woman present in a home. You have a full-fledged Game of Thrones. Everybody, the two of them are fighting for power and control. Now, because she is a god, we can't blame her for if we aren't going to be God, if we have abdicated our duty as God, she is inherently going to step up. Because that vacuum can't exist. If I'm not going to be God, she is. The corrective of that is for us to, you and me, the black man, to be the God that God came to these shores, traveling 9,000 miles to make us. Now, you know, this generation, y'all want to, not you, but this generation, y'all want to go Dutch, right? Y'all want to go 50-50. Right? Okay, well, if you do that, you're going to go 50-50 in the home in terms of power and authority. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that's not the way in Islam. He structured a home life in a way that facilitates the proper functioning of this divine order of things. But if we, instead of following the way of Islam that he is teaching us, we want to follow behind these other ways, well, that just exponentially amplifies the toxicity. We can't be, in other words, the answer to that fraudulent ideology that the black woman is God, full stop, meaning she's the matriarchal God, she's the first God. And that is not the case. She is the second God, created by the first God. She is the second self. You are the first self, but both of us have fallen. Neither one of us got those prerogatives, so we can't walk around as if we do. But the aim of this Islam is for us to help us acquire those prerogatives again. But if we do our job, she naturally will incline herself to her own nature. Yes, this world has taught the black woman a particular way. And this world deliberately hopes to use the black woman, use the woman to Can't say take down the black nation, we're down. But to hijack the process of resurrection, we cannot be resurrected without her. We need her. That's why 75% of God's work is with her. That lets you know how critical her piece of this puzzle is. And Satan knows it too. So as God has specific designs for the black woman in this resurrection process, Satan has specific designs for the black woman in this anti-resurrection process. But the answer to all of that is the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the lifestyle of Islam that God brought for the black man and woman of America to repair fix those problems. And the understanding of these as given to us by the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. That is the answer to our problems. The Islam of Elijah, in particular, is the panacea of black people's problems. If we would actually study them, reflect on them, don't dismiss them because we think we're too good for religion. Now, this ain't religion as you have been made to understand religion to be. This is a prescription to heal black life and transform it from one state to another state.
Well, speaking on that, when we talk about the culture today, what most people think of the culture is hip hop culture, entertainment culture. So there was a time where, you go back to Marcus Garvey, he had STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics. And his goal was to build a culture on that foundation. Today, we take out the whole STEM and it's just the arts left. And a culture just built on that foundation. But then the current culture that we have is not a representation of that foundation. It's a representation of the business built from that foundation, which is the industry as we have it, right? Which is now the representation of what is known as hip hop. So when we talk about hip hop, we're not talking about its tenets, its values, its foundation. We're talking about the business of, right? And those who control that business and the products that they produce and or invest in from that business. So when I look at the book you have here, Hip Hop Conspiracy, and I first want to start with, how powerful it is, music, right? Before we go into deeper culture, but music itself, because we talk about environment, right? And as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, environment is stronger than nature.
Yes.
So we have an improper environment, but a proper nature, we're still going to get that disruption. So I want to talk about the mechanisms of music that can disrupt our nature, right? And make us other than ourselves. And you laid out a foundation of it. You talk about the gateway process. You talk about the binaural beats, right? And the different levels of consciousness that it can disrupt or take us into. So starting with music, why is music so important as a tool, as a weapon, number one, that can bring us down or lift us up?
So everything vibrates. Nothing is still. Everything vibrates. Our bodies are sonic. Every organ vibrates at a particular resonance, at a particular frequency. Our brain cells vibrate. The science of music, and the shamans of old knew it well, and that's how they use the drum to sonically manipulate the environment, starting with physiology, and sonically transcend conscious states because of vibration. So you sync the vibratory rates of two independent objects, you sync the vibratory rates, you can manipulate the one or the other. Sonic warfare. Weaponizing the audio sphere, not just the audioscape, not just the landscape, but the soundscape. That is what undergirds the current state of hip hop and rap music today. As it exists, as rap exists today, and again, not just rap music, but from that and through that, hip hop culture. Both have been weaponized, in the science of sonic warfare has ensured the success of the weaponization of hip hop and rap music against Black people. So, mind control through music. Mind control through music. It's a scientific fact that music, sound, and musical sound can be used to synchronize the neural orchestra of the brain. External music can be used as a conductor to bring the neurological orchestra, make it play a desired tune. The CIA studied it and mastered it with the gateway process, and they learned that with the science of binaural beats, right? Binaural. The best hypnotic mental state in terms of brain frequency, alpha, beta, delta. The best frequency to conduct hypnotic control is theta state. If you can sync a person into theta state, when therapists do hypnosis,
were you in a more relaxed,
but in particular, a number of the states are more relaxed, but what is unique to theta state, which makes it the quintessential hypnotic state, is in theta, you're not just relaxed, but your left hemisphere is put to sleep. And that's important because how the brain works. The right hemisphere receives information, stimulus, but it has to go through the left hemisphere, the check procedure of the left hemisphere. The left brain is a check procedure, our neurological check procedure. The left hemisphere scrutinize what comes in through the right, and what is disagreeable to our natural developed system at the time, the left hemisphere flags it, tosses it out. So it filters data, filters concept. If you put the left hemisphere to sleep, you put the left brain to sleep, then you can send anything through the right hemisphere and there is no check procedure. It can be a part of be made a part of your system. And in fact, you can cure behavioral problems this way. Habits that in the conscious state we've always done. You can stop a habit or introduce a habit by sending it unfiltered through the right hemisphere. That's the significance of theta state. Theta in theta state, the left hemisphere is put to sleep. The check procedure is suspended. Like Malcolm's check procedure was suspended by an enemy the day he was gunned down. And so theta state, how do you sink a mark, a target in the theta state without him or her knowing? The range for theta state around 4, 5, 6, 7 hertz. Through this system of binaural beats, sending one frequency, say 325 hertz, into this ear, another frequency, say 321, or let's take that down. 125 here, 121 here. The brain will hear the difference between the two. And the difference between 125 and 121, of course, is 4. So the brain will synchronize on 4 hertz. Now, 4 hertz is a very important frequency. Not only is it theta, but 10 hertz is theta too, but 10 hertz is very positive. If the brain is made to sync to 10 hertz through that method, say, send 125 here, 115 here, difference being 10, that hemispheric synchronization, because both hemispheres will sync to 10 hertz. That stimulates serotonin. You can trigger the release of hormones, positive hormones. So 10 hertz is a great frequency. However, 4 hertz is the fear frequency. So it stimulates anxiety, noradrenaline. It can poison the blood. You can do that through this process, and the CIA learned that you can do it in the CIA through the gateway process. It says something very interesting that I think is relevant to hip hop. Said the optimal way to do this is to use headphones. So by using headphones, it blocks out extraneous sounds and it doesn't contaminate the process. So by using headphones, we can get a purer delivery of the 2 frequencies and more effectively induce the desired state. And so did you notice that out of the blue, where technology was trending, small, sleek, stealth, out of the blue, these big headphones, Beats by Dre, came on the market? And the thing with Beats by Dre is, the musical purists and sonic purists from the beginning, they were always hard on Beats by Dre, say, because it's poor sound quality. And Jimmy Iovine, because Beats was not Dr. Dre's intention. Dr. Dre wanted to make sneakers. Jimmy Iovine, who I have a lot to say in that book about, said, forget sneakers, do speakers. So he introduced the idea of these speakers, or ear headphones, but the reason they call them speakers because Beats by Dre work like woofers. It increases bass. It increases bass, low frequency bass, and that is the money shot. We love bass as a people. I love trap. Yeah, I love them 808.
Mm-hmm.
But that is where the money is made in terms of sonic warfare. And so these big, bulky headphones came out the blue. Dre's name was attached to it, but they walked it's as if they walked right off of the gateway process page. Not only because that speaker system focuses, openly enhances low frequency bass to the detriment of overall sound quality. But they're unapologetic. No, this is about the bass. Black music is about bass. So this for black people, but low frequency is sound, and music in particular was the specific operational aim. Weaponizing low frequency was the specific operational aim of the CIA. It's now black music, hip hop, is dominated by low frequency and big speak headphones, making the gateway process efficiently deliverable.
So I want to ask, in terms of history and cultures, how has music been used ritualistically for Black people throughout time, right? Because we're going to bring it up to where we are now, but how have we always used music?
Let's start with God. God is the first musician. Right? Satan uses music for his aim, but God uses music for his aim as well. God is the first musician and the first mathematician. The musical vibrations of creation, God did that. And just as you can weaponize frequency, frequency can be used for eugenics purpose as effectively as it can be used for dysgenics purposes. Satan uses music, the science of music, for dysgenics purposes, ergo the weaponization of hip hop. God uses music for eugenics purposes. And so it's a fact that, for example, the plant experiments, plant life, they did experiments. They beamed in certain musical frequencies, certain songs, in particular rock music. And they watched in the plant life degenerate. And you saw it growing in a way, trying to move away, escape the source of the sound. It's the metabolism of the plants degenerate when they switch the music. They fed, along with sunlight, they fed harmonious music to the plants. They saw the plants, they became greener, they grew and were healthy. Music has a so those two, dysgenics versus eugenics. A dysgenics effect and a eugenics effect, because sound, music, the quality of it, the melody of it, has physiological, biochemical effect. And so God can use music eugenically as Satan is using music dysgenically, degenerating the human organism like they use music to degenerate the plant organism. So music is extremely powerful, which you would expect, being that the all-powerful God was the first musician.
But I wanted to get into like, I know I think you've written about before, just sound, period. Not even just music, but sound. You know, how we utilize the drums.
Yep, it's
right.
okay.
And because the idea of creating you an environment, a harmonious environment, a clean environment, right? I want people to walk away with some practices. So do you play, number one, do you play binaural beats at home?
No, I do not. Not consciously.
Not consciously.
Now, I don't, hold on. I don't have the big expensive beats by Dre. I got the stringy ones, right? Not that this can't be used as well. I don't use commercial binaural beats. I think for the same reason I don't take advantage of commercialized yoga. There's a science to yoga, a black god science, a sacred science of the black god is at the root of the practice of yoga. But I don't see the sacred science of the black god in what's offered in the West as yoga. The binaural beats, they're on YouTube. Right? You can get them, you can put what's presented as binaural beats on YouTube. You can purchase cassettes. I don't use any of those because I don't know what frequency is being generated and to what end. So until I'm sure I know the fact of binaural beats and what can be done with them and what is being done with them. Until I come across a binaural beats tape,
I'm gonna make one
that I can have confidence.
Yes, sir.
What's being sent to me, then I won't submit. But
I know people who have sound schools out here. That's what they do. They can put together anything when it comes to
I know
music
it can
and
be
sound.
done. So I know it can be done, but this is.
But I'm gonna give you a black god verified one.
Okay, and a very important experiment was conducted in London, and it was part of the enhanced study of binaural beats. But they wanted to test out the fear factor in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And so at a prestigious concert, live music concert in London, scientists got together and hid for frequency in certain of the music selections that were performed. And they studied the effect when those pre-selected songs laced with the fear frequency, 4 hertz frequency. The audience just listened to the music. They didn't know that they've been zapped, if you will, sonically zapped with this frequency. They didn't know. They just enjoying the concert. But the scientists knew, and they recorded the results, and they recorded how anxiety increased, unsourced fear came over them. And so I keep that. So I know that it can be done, it's being done, because I don't have the capability myself or the knowledge to vet a binaural beat. I don't have that. If you give me something, sure, I will listen to it. Will I fall asleep to it? Probably not. And it's not you.
Yes, sir.
I know you're good people, but this technology.
Yeah.
So, I need to, before I would be a binaural beats user, right? Rather than want to listen to a binaural beats tape, I absolutely would. But before I become a binaural beats user, I need to acquire the level of confidence to be able to discern what frequencies I'm being zapped with.
Yeah.
What state am I being sunk into, conscious state? And then because the package is twofold. The music will sink us into theta state, the hypnotic state. And now with hypnosis, you then have the commands, the message command. And in terms of music and rap music in particular, the beat can, unbeknownst to us, put us in theta state, the hypnotic state, and then the message command is in the lyrics, and in particular, the hook. I want to be as high as I can, want to be as high as I can, want to be as high as I can. Any hook that rides that beat can be the message command. What's going on in my environment? What potential message commands are in my landscape that if I am a studious listener of this binaural beats tape, what will I be influenced by? So, see, that's a Pandora box because it's so real.
Yes, sir.
And I respect the fact of it. I'm not casual.
Yes, sir.
In its use.
Well, I mean, that also goes into any music you listen to. There, at this point, I believe that we'll get there, you know, as people become more educated and more aware of the subject. They're not going to just be listening to music. It's like taking a look at the back of an ingredients on a product you get from, and you're going to be like, okay, what's the range of binaural beats on this, right? Then what's the words? And technology actually allows us to do that now, right? Where you can plug something in and then you can give it a reference. So let's say I plug in your book and I'll be like, okay, based on these teachings, is this a song that would be good for me to listen to?
Yes, sir.
And they be like, well, this puts you in a theta range, and based on these words, these are actually negative, so you probably shouldn't listen to this because this can induce a range of stress and negative thinking in your life.
Absolutely.
So according to the goals that you want, I don't think this is something you should listen to.
Absolutely.
Now that level of customizing, right, one's lifestyle, way of life towards their vision, right, towards, you know, your blood, right, and everything else in your environment, I think that's another aspect of us getting to a point where we become more scientific as a people.
Absolutely.
And we think about coordinating our lives.
That is the goal. And be real clear, if you hear any pushback from me,
I understand. I hear the respect of the science.
Yeah.
Because you can go to gamma as well.
Yeah, and I know that the binaural beats tape that you produce, you safely and with warrant utilize it. I respect your thought processes. No, I know you are listening or surrendering yourself to something that you trust.
Yes, sir.
And I know theoretically, because I trust you, but of course, everything is real. I trust what this science can do enough where it's just like something I will put in my body. There are people who I like, who I have great respect for, but I'm not just going to ingest a concoction because I like you and I trust you.
Yeah,
there has to be a level of scrutiny that I go through to make me comfortable ingesting what you're offering. And I got the same respect for mental, neurological ingestion.
And think about that, because this is where we we get to the holistic side of it, because there's people right now, they have a deep scrutiny over what they ingest as far as food. But musically, none at all.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so this is why you're not having a complementary lifestyle to where you change one thing, but the other thing is negating that.
Absolutely.
Right? And we do this a lot. My mom always say, she speaks about like when you can eat good all day, but once you eat that sugar, right, that cancels out all that good eating.
That is right.
Right? And that's kind of how we are with life. We be doing the good thing and then we take the sugar.
That is right.
And then it cancels out all that good that we did.
Right. We hustle
and
back.
now you at a deficit, actually. Just that scrutiny over the way that we, dietary, but then your sound diet. You know what I mean?
We compartmentalize in a very non-rational way.
Not at all. But see, I'm very aware of, you have to be very aware of your diet on all levels. Right? This is why I can't listen to certain people. Or if I'm doing, then I'm letting myself know, okay, this is what I'm ingesting.
Right.
Versus you walk into a situation and you acting like all things are equal.
Right.
If I was to watch a horror movie, I'm letting myself know, like, okay, this isn't trained. Whoever do the sound scoring, they gonna put that fear frequency in there. The movie isn't scary. Your body is reacting to the sound, right? Because they put that ghost frequency in there.
Absolutely.
And most people will be like, why am I tripping?
Absolutely.
Tough, like, it ain't got nothing to do with you.
Yeah, it's physiology.
Yeah, the frequency hitting you.
Yep.
So I think about that in life, and holistically, I want people to get better. And it's like people smoke, people drink, people do all sorts of different things, and they have probably one thing that they do religiously that makes them feel like they're living holistically, and they're not. The holistic is the full practice of all things. So I always look at things and I say, and it's something I've been challenging my tribe with, is, are you living at your 100%? Right? And living at your 100% is essentially living at your God level. But we break it down categorically, right? And we always start physically. If we say physically, if God said, here's your mission. Now I want you to choose the body to go on that mission. Now, do you choose your current body and say, hey, your energy levels is 50% half the time, right? This is your diet of what you eat, right? This is your physical strength and capability. Now, based on the mission that I gave you in life and the vision that you have, is this the body you want? Now, most people are going to say, no, I want to upgrade. Right? What that does automatically put you in this mindset to let you know how far you are from your peak, right? And how far you are from your 100%. So now you have to identify whether you're settling with what you are at that baseline, or are you still progressing to become better, right? And men can't truly be respected unless they're living at their peak. If we see a man living below his peak, that brother could be doing so much better. He could be putting out so much more. He could be increasing more. You're not going to be fully respected because we want to see your potential, and then we're going to look at your reality. And that distance from it, that's what's giving you that depression. That's what's giving you that anxiety. That's why you smoking. That's why you're trying to distract yourself, because you know the reality you should be living at, and there's the one that you're settling for. And then we shift that over to say, okay, well, let's go financially. Let's go spiritually. Let's go, right, mentally, right? Where should your mind be? How smart should you be, right? We can look at how you retain information, all sort of different categories. And this has helped a lot of people to start looking at their life, right? To decide whether they're settling or are they still focused on growth. And when you focus on growth, you develop skills, you learn, you take in knowledge, you're open-minded so that you don't miss superior wisdom. And you're not just stuck in this system of cycled beliefs because this was make me comfortable with who I am. But if who you are needs to evolve, then there's a part of yourself you have to let go or kill to become the God you're supposed to be. So as we having this conversation, this is presenting a lot of, for a lot of people, new knowledge. But it's also a disruption to your current will, your current faith, your current belief. But if you wish to be at your 100%, you have to at least be open to go study this, go investigate it to see if it's right or wrong. Otherwise, stay where you are. And if the state of where you are is the highest level that you believe that you can obtain, then you need to think again, because you're not there, because none of us are there. And that's when you know you have faulty thinking.
Excellent.
As we look at the culture, is the culture at 100%? Is hip hop culture is 100%? Hell no. I mean, it's a high level no.
It's in the negatives at
It's
this
in a
point.
super deficit, depression, recession, and it's dead. And, you know, currently looking at BET and looking at what we call blackface media now, where it's not really black owned, but it has black faces, which is why they putting out these reports to try to attack true black owned media. Because as long as it's black faced, they have no problem because ad dollars control that.
Right.
But if you get to decide, you independent, intellectual, you just get to wake up today and decide what you want to say, that was never how the culture was supposed to be ran.
Absolutely.
So there's this huge disruption to where you get to impose your will undisrupted. No, we have to combat that in some capacity. What you do with your books is you combat that at all levels, right? And with this particular book, The Hip Hop Conspiracy, I think everybody needs to dive into this. Because you have documented, number one, the conspiracy of Michael Jackson's death, Bob Marley's death, Eazy-E,
yes, sir.
Right? And as you go into the detail of who owns, runs, controls hip-hop, and I respect the fact that you address it first at a scientific level, right? And at a spiritual one, and going into an occult, right? The level of understanding these entities that attach themselves to us. And see, we look at them in one dimension. This is why we can't understand the problem.
Absolutely.
Right? And they said that well, you don't even know how. Right? He got to be stopped at breath. You can't breathe life into anything.
I like that language.
Right? So they know that you think it's financial, you think it's mental, you think it's physical. That ain't where we getting you. We killing your spirit.
Absolutely.
And I want to ask you, as you have been through this, one thing that I wanted to establish for as the listening audience and for the rest of the world is agreed upon values of a culture. Because what we don't have and why we can't agree with each other, because we don't have agreed upon values. If we have agreed upon values, then we can say when you're going against them, right? Because we can establish a standard that this music doesn't meet the standard of the values. What are your values? That's where we create that ethnic connection. Like you, my tribe, if you move like this, because these are our values. When I meet God, body, foundation, knowledge of self, right? Oh, those are agreed upon values. But this
have a
culture,
criterion.
Yes, sir. There is no criterion for the current hip hop culture. So anybody can jump in, throw on the beat, right? Rap, get in front of a microphone and say, yo, I'm a rapper, I'm hip hop, which then becomes part of the reputation of Black America, because that's what get exported as our identity.
Absolutely.
And which is our reputation, which is our respect card across the planet Earth. So I want to ask you, what are some of the values in which a good culture should be founded upon?
Thank you. It cannot come to that
Yes, sir.
a little backwards.
Yes, sir.
Because I would say your point is so important. I would say that the current state of hip hop, there is a criterion. There absolutely is a very defined value system that the current state of hip hop reflects. Once the majors took over rap music, since the late 80s, early 90s, a situation has now become rap music. 70 to 80% of the consumers are not Black. They are white. So the majority consumer population is white. The owners of the labels, and as Ice Cube said on Bill Maher's show recently, how he outlined how these label heads micromanage the song production process to push their narrative. So the script writers of rap music, the owners of the labels are white. The script writers of rap music are white, and they are servicing a white clientele. White people are the consumers of rap music. Majority consumers of white rap music. What's the point in terms of the values that hip hop reflects today? White people in America have always had an appetite for particular constructions of blackness. Always. That's how we get Step and Fetch It. That's how we get the coon songs. That's how we get blackface. The audiences were always white. And white people always had, from then to now, an appetite for particular constructions of blackness. And the three paradigms, the three constructions of blackness that are always privileged in white America: the pantsy, the bully coon, and the Jezebel. All artistic representations of blackness that come to the world by white people, for white people. That's the limit of the constructions, the fabrications of blackness. The pantsy, Jim Crow, that's that feminized black man. The bully coon, that's that hyper-violent thug black man. And the Jezebel, that's the promiscuous, hypersexualized black woman. Those three constructions of blackness are what the white consumers of black images demand, require. And so that hip hop is dominated by those constructions of blackness. The bully coon, the whole gangster rap phenomenon, so-called gangster rap phenomenon, and now drill rap, the nigga killing nigga. That's the bully coon that white America has an appetite for. The pantsy, he's either the nigga killing nigga, the bully coon, or the effeminate. And so when Leo Cohen put Young Thug in the dress and called him Jeffrey, I know his birth name is Jeffrey, but there's a reason Leo Cohen, the Israeli general of hip hop, decided to put Young Thug in that dress and choose that project to be called My Name is Jeffrey, because Jeffrey, as Leo Cohen knew, was the name of a particular popular homosexual play. Craig Cowman of Atlantic put Lil Uzi Vert and made him a cross-dresser. And Little Uzi Vert, he too has an alter ego, Leslie. Lil Nas X. So the queering of hip hop, see, that's the pantsy. So you got the nigga killing nigga, you got the bully coon, you got the pantsy, and you got the wop ratchet, right? So Craig Cowman and Julie Greenwald, two Jewish music executives, both mentees of Leo Cohen, it said that their biggest cultural coup It's Cardi B and Little Uzi Vert. Now, Little Uzi Vert, the Pansy, and Cardi B, the other half of WAP. That's a Jezebel. So the black woman in hip hop has to be a Jezebel. I don't know. Megan Pete, our beautiful sister from Houston, Texas. The character Megan Thee Stallion is a deliberate construction of a blackness that white appetites require. So the whole landscape of hip hop today reflects a very definite value system. Not our value system, but the value system of our enemy. And so, to close the point, the constructions of blackness that white appetites require, they also have a very important, as they have always had a very important social role in terms of oppression. The reason the bully coon was the coon that carried the big razor that bullied all the other coons, and everybody was scared of him. When late 19th century, early 20th century, mainly Jews, popularized the bully coon character and caricature, it served two purposes. One, it fed the appetite of the whites that want to see that. It also gave warrant to the draconian control measures that white people were imposing on black people. See, the bully coon is a threatening figure. So we have to be oppressive to black males, lest the bully coon terrorize our neighborhoods. So the bully coon character justified lynchings. This level of control is justified because, look, these are how these people are. The bully coons, the Jezebel. The Jezebel, the hypersexualized, promiscuous black woman, it too served and serves a very important social oppressive role beyond feeding the degenerate appetites of white people. The black male as bully coon is depicted as a natural rapist of white women. And so to protect the virtue of white women, black men, the bully coon, have to be lynched and castrated because a black man as bully coon is a natural rapist of white women. Now, the Jezebel served opposite purpose. The Jezebel, she wasn't just hypersexualized. The Jezebel character craved white men. And so what that means and how that translated was, there's no such thing as a white man raping a black woman. That does not exist because the black woman can't be raped by the white man. She is craving this of white men. So any white man who forces himself on a black woman, she craved it. And so, still to this day, black women, a white man won't be found guilty for raping a black woman because a black woman has been mainstreamed as the Jezebel, the hypersexualized Jezebel. She can't be raped. She don't have any moral fiber. She doesn't have that virtue. She's virtueless. So anybody can have their way with her That's what she's for. She's a Jezebel. And so this construction of blackness, the ratchet hip hop, Megan the Stallion, not Megan P, that's our sister. Megan the Stallion is a constructed blackness, is a Jezebel constructed to serve a particular purpose. Megan the Stallion is the first lady of 300 Entertainment. That's Leo Cohen. Cardi B is the great cultural coup of Craig Cowman and Julie Greenwald. That's Leo Cohen. Hip hop is today the value system. There's a value system. It's Jewish valuation of black people. That's a criterion of hip hop culture today.
Peace, family. If you want to see us at the highest level, if you want to see us at the top of the podcast charts, this is the way you can help, not just with your views and your attention. First of all, I want to thank you for being here, listening, watching, sharing, but we also need you to comment. This is how support looks like. I need you to comment the best thing you liked about the episode or the worst thing. It's up to you, whatever you would like to share. Then I need you to go and put in them 5 stars. Go to Apple's, go to Spotify's, go everywhere, and I need to see them testimonials, and I need you to go on Apple and Spotify and download and subscribe. The more downloads we get, the better we are able to do in business, and the more we can grow this high level media. Again, I want to thank you all for supporting. Thank you all for tapping in. If you want to book, the booking email is 19keys@19keys.com. Tap in. So now I must take a look at the opposite of all of those. Because then one can say, well, if that's what they pushed, then the opposite is what's needed.
Yes. Yes.
The masculine.
Yes.
The intellect,
yes.
I would say, would be the opposite of the bully cone.
Yes.
And for the lustful, the virtuous.
That's right.
And so if someone is to consider themselves to be a part of good culture, I was saying about influence, that good influence is good leadership. A leader must be influential in the first place. But there's so many influencers, but they don't all have good influence.
Right.
There's a lot of bad influence out here all over, and people are not taking the responsibility that they have when they step out on platform, because people say, I don't want to be a role model. Regardless of whether you want to or not, you're stepping in position of someone who influences other people. Once you create a platform, you have clouds, you have people that follow you, that hang on to your words, you have now stepped into the role of a leader.
That is right.
Whether you decide you want to be a conscious good leader or bad leader, that's up to you. But the effects and the results will still happen regardless if you take responsibility or not.
Absolutely.
And so what happens to a lot of people, by the time they become aware and they look at the effects of their leadership, they feel guilty. Oh man, I've let this many people wrong. I've harmed this many people. I wasn't even thinking about it. That's what we hear. I hear that from my brothers. I wasn't even thinking about it. So now they're trying to correct their wrongs. But let's start off now, right? Not needing to correct it because we are already thinking. That's why I say high-level conversations just to make you think. See, a thinking man don't make them kind of mistakes, because he go think first. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Who am I doing it to? Where am I doing this? What am I doing? You get to that roundabout of questions. Now you have that intent. Now you have that science. Now you get to judge. You go be God or a devil. You go value or devalue. You go add to or take from. So if we start off saying we need that masculine, that intellect, that virtuous, right? That masculine man, the one who is masculine, they're going to impose their will, right? And then the values that come with being a masculine man. And we don't think about that in the healthy dynamic. We always think about it from the unhealthy dynamic, because that perspective is what's forced upon us. Not to see masculinity as something to grow into, but something to stay away from.
That's right.
Right? And then the bully
right.
coon, yes, that's the hyper aspect. When you don't have self-control, when you have anger issues, when your emotional IQ is
No
low.
impulse control.
No
right.
impulse control. So the intellect, that's the thinking man. Wait a minute, I know how to
That's
conflict,
That's
you know,
right.
resolved. I
That's
know
right.
how the proper handling of people. I know how to
Right.
move throughout the world.
That's right.
I know how to think. I know how to strategize. I can create a whole campaign for life. I'm a
right.
mathematician, right? I'm an engineer. I can design this world the way I want to. That thinking, man, it's not that it don't exist. It's not celebrated.
That is right.
Right?
That excellently said.
I see people put together, you know, this is why I just
And
observe
it exists in
culture.
hip hop.
Yes,
but it's not celebrated.
It's not celebrated.
It's not centered at the BET.
It's not. It's made seen as an outlier every time.
Right.
And I'm like, wait a minute. Why y'all make it seem as if the people that are at the top, you got Kendrick and Cole.
Yes, sir.
They represent intellectual black men that make you think.
I was going to bring them up because I am fans of those two. They do represent a different construction of blackness. There's a lot of wholeness in both of them. Now, of course, it's a mixed bag.
Yes, sir.
But that's okay. Because those two in particular, and there are others, but it should be said, because those two in particular represent positive aspects of our culture like we haven't seen it in a long time.
Yes, sir.
So shout out to J. Cole and K-Dot.
And I want people to stop trying to make it seem like that's an outlier. It's a reason that works because we actually want it.
That's right.
So when I created High Level Conversations, number one, and this, I just went out to Kansas City and we was having conversations about how do you increase the quality of life for Black people living in a lot of these inner cities, right? And what I recognize is that the mayors and a lot of these people in these places don't understand their constituents anymore because they haven't taken in the account of their digital environments, what they're streaming. These people, I was at this soul food place, and this sister, you wouldn't know that she's interested in high level conversations, right? No disrespect to the sister, but you know, it looked like my auntie. You know, she in the bonnet, she getting off work, she cooking. You feel me? And she like, Keys, oh, I love high level conversations.
Wow.
And so when you're not aware of the new exposure and the interest of these people in these environments, and a lot of times people will keep their interests closed off. They won't let nobody know because they don't think other people are interested in those things. So you're not going to then see industry curated and created around those interests and the new exposure that people now have. But Black people in America, right, are every single day intentfully looking for more positive exposure, more positive consciousness, more education, more knowledge. Right? People tell me they sit down with the whole family every Sunday and they want to get some high level thinking in their lifestyle. But then we're not going to create movies and shows and awards and restaurants that represent this now newfound interest, right? We're curating the lower values. We're not curating the higher. So my challenge to people is to think about that because we're not that old people. Right? Once we have that power to go search things ourselves, look at what we search at. Yeah, there's a lot of distractions, but even through that, we still find our way to something good.
Very important.
And the only reason that it's not, we don't even see it take all the way over is because it's not celebrated and or invested into. Because they know that if this is what happens organically, we put a 10x budget behind this, then it takes over the culture.
That's right.
And it's Black people's responsibility to celebrate it because what we do is you look at a lot of these cultural events, you have advertisers, they trying to curate an event that they believe will be safe enough that the advertisers will keep sponsoring it. So what they would do instead of, saying, well, we like this person, they are culture, I'm going to bring them in. How about, they don't mind the effeminate, hyper-masculine, and lustful.
Right.
So we're going to bring them in.
Right.
Even though that we can control what culture is because they're going to need us regardless. They're going to need to advertise because they're going to want to get that Black dollar.
Right.
So what they're doing is they're doing the trade. Hey, you have a Black-centric audience, and the trade for that, we will sponsor your event, slap our advertisement and sponsorship on there so that Black people are aware and we can influence their spending power. But if you said, okay, well, if you want to do that, This is what is now the culture.
Mm.
And you're going to force them to then put budget to that.
Absolutely.
When we had black unions, like the Black Caucus and the State of the Black Union, even at that time, there was McDonald's sponsoring that. Why? Because they had no other choice. They wanted to get the black dollar. So when there was going to be a large mass group of black people paying attention to something, they wanted in. And we're not forcing that change.
We're not leveraging
at
the
all.
power that we have.
So I want people to think about the way you show up in what is your revolution, right? I believe that there can be a silent revolution. There's silent radicals. Everybody's not going to be as vocal as you and I. I don't expect everybody to be. Your stances are very radical and revolutionary.
As are yours.
Yes, sir. I don't expect
Brilliantly so.
But I will challenge you to say, what is my revolution? And in your position, or with your money, with your network, you can do something to help push a better culture, right? And you can do it in a way where you don't even realize you have that power. You're just not wielding it, right? And I believe what we're constantly showcasing is new archetypes. And movies and films, music, we don't see enough archetypes for young men to say, I want to be that. I want to be the masculine intellectual that's wealthy with some power, got a beautiful wife, can move about the world. I want to be that. That looks better than a rapper.
That's right.
Right? That looks better than this thing that's curated by them. And that has been the goal and the vision the entire time. How do we create new archetypes to see ourselves in? Right? And they try to make the Nation of Islam an outlier. But it's like, no, these young brothers, man, they live in beautiful lives with beautiful wives.
That's
right? And they're not dealing with the same issues and effects that the world has.
That is right.
Because the world is a drug. Once you take it, there's side effects. Right?
Well said.
And so you can stay on the drug called the world, right? Or you can create your own. Right? Something without the side effects. Because these side effects are bad. Look at all the statistics of black men in America. I see it in my environment, brothers that I know all over. Black men silently suffer every single day, right? And the statistics are getting worse, from cancer to mental depression, from poverty, from lack of fatherhood, from gun violence to imprisonment, all throughout the board. They just keep rising. It's in a state of crisis right now.
It is.
And we're not putting the flag out there to say, yo, we messed up. But we are. So even as we having these conversations, there's so much on the spirit of the black man to even get to the point where he can absorb and digest. But just the fact that I know the brothers that's listening to this and sisters that have sat down and digested this whole thing, right? You want to take the cure. You want to get off the drug called the world.
That's right.
The more you see the world going against someone, that's because Big Pharma don't want you off their drug.
Right.
They want you to stay on the tit of white supremacy.
That is right.
They want you to stay suppling in these negative, toxic environments because nothing they do is made to turn you into a god.
Absolutely.
And there's nobody that can put out a thesis. They can't write a paper. They can't write a poem that can make me believe that this devil has any good intentions towards you evolving into who you supposed to be.
Absolutely.
So I would pin that point to the foundation of culture has to be knowledge of self.
Absolutely.
And
I would agree 100%.
Very hard for me to respect a man that is not at least on the path to developing knowledge of self, because ignorance is dangerous.
It is. It is.
Now, brother, I know I can't take all your time, but you have the Chariots of the Black Gods. You have the Book of God, which you stated was written in 1998, and I didn't even realize that.
Yes, sir.
So you've been speaking on Sumeriology for a very long time now. So you're not a newcomer to this game, but now this information is all out there. And there are a lot of newcomers to the game that look at you as if you Johnny come.
Right.
You feel me?
Right, absolutely.
But I remember the Book of God being in my household when I was in high school. My mother brought one home, and I was interested or instantly gravitated towards it because it said encyclopedia proof that the black man is God. And I said, who will go write a cyclopedia first? Proof, because this is at the time you got to go to the library,
absolutely,
and you got to
There's no
get
internet.
dictionaries, and we actually use encyclopedias.
Yeah, there's no Google at all at that time.
So you had to actually go through it to get it. And it just has so much knowledge and footnote and so much rigorous process to it. And I want people to go through all your books.
I appreciate that.
If there's a difference
I
of
didn't know
opinion,
that
challenge it.
That story, your blessed mother brought the book of God home.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she did. That was I didn't think I discovered you years later. And I'm like, that's the Dr. Wesley that wrote the book of God.
Man, it belongs to Allah.
And ever since then, you have been challenging us, right? In our growth, in our intellectual growth, in our process, right? To continue to develop into God's, because I believe that that's what this reminder is.
Well, it's because Brother Keys, I encountered in a cafeteria in Morehouse College as a atheist. At the time, I heard a brother quoting the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that I was totally unfamiliar with. He said, the black man is God. And I'm an atheist, a very bitter, very arrogant atheist, but those words penetrated my consciousness, and it had the effect on me that the white man is the devil had on Malcolm, as he describes it in his autobiography. So I fell madly in love with the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and this was 1990. By 1992, my life mission had become clear to me, Brother Keys, and that life mission was the academic vindication of the teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The entirety of my life since then has been directed to that end, because this teaching, the teaching of Islam, of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it is the panacea. It is what lifts all of us. And so I think every black man and woman should study this teaching. You will fall in love. I did not know the black man is God. It was, but hearing it and learning it and studying it and see how it all comes together, that inspired. That's how the book of God, an encyclopedia of proof that the black man is God, came about. I did not know the black man was God.
Yes, sir.
But I heard that the black man is God from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I had to write an encyclopedia of proof because there's 1 million encyclopedias of proof worth of evidence of its truth. So the black man and woman can have no excuse. What that man teaches is not religious doctrine. The Islam of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is absolutely a verifiable body of knowledge. So when I engage these other thinkers, whether it's on the Anunnaki, whether it's on the wheel, I'm not doing so. I'm not putting my religious dogma up against your intellectuality. No, I'm saying let's. They say band for band. Let's go fact for fact. Let's go data for data. Let's go document for document, and you will see that what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said on a matter is the truth of the matter, not because dogma requires that to be the case, but because the data absolutely demonstrates it to be the case. That's my program.
One last thing I wanted to ask you. When it comes to the word man, is the word man equivalent to the word mind?
I think in the Latin, I think it is.
So when we say the black man is God, are we not saying the black mind is God?
Absolutely.
I say that because the digestibility of that statement, I think, puts on a responsibility for one to have control of their mind, to be qualified to say that they are a God. It's like when you lose yourself, people say, I need to remind you, because you have lost your mind. So although, yes, you are a great melanated being, you fit the description of black, but you don't fit that black mind because you have lost it. And so when you get knowledge of self, it's a reminder. Here's who you are. Now come back into the fullness of who you are. Then you have self-realization. Then that leads to self-actualization. So now you actually can be who you know you are. And the chief diagnosis of Black America is ignorance to who they truly are. And that gets me back to the statement that knowledge of self has to be the foundation.
Absolutely.
Because that's the qualifying factor to that statement being true for you.
Absolutely. And that's the first step. I would offer that the complete formula was given by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Accept your own. Right? First, I have to acquire knowledge of self, then accept your own and be yourself. There has to be an activation, an actualization of that self-knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Knowledge of self without the opportunity to actualize self is what causes a cognitive dissonance that drives us to frustration and suicide, and the world's the needles of this world are felt more acutely once we know we are God, but have no ability and no path to actualize that. That's where it seems it was better when we were ignorant.
Yeah.
So accept your own and be yourself. Once we know who we are, we have to put ourselves in a position to be who we are.
Yes, sir. Well, brother, Dr. Wesley, I thank you for your attendance here for the second time, for your scholarship, for your mind, for showing and proving every single time, right? I believe you show up for a lot of people across the planet Earth, right? If we look at the deficit that we're in the culture, when you have a righteous mind, it represents the wealth to rebalance out that deficit. As you say in economics, to be back in the black.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I think there's a beautiful thing that's happening today, and that it requires patience. As we started off, the greatest good, we realize that we are only starting something. We're not ending it.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Everything that we're doing is so that there's a reoccurring, not reoccurring, but there is a production, right, of something
advancing,
better. Right, and advancing and evolution.
Right.
Because if we're not building off the thoughts of our ancestors, then we're not evolving. Right. And when we're building off their ancestors, we're evolving them. Which is why it's important for us to have correct knowledge, and correct history, and correct way of life. So here at High Level Conversations, we focus on evolving the culture. The past is beautiful. That's where we get to look back and learn. But what is the vision that we have? Because that's what we have to look forward to. And so today, the way we treat ourselves, the things that we learn, the way we correct ourselves, the way we detoxify our DNA, You know, I recently went through a short sickness, but I had to purge everything that was in my body, right? And the nutritionist tell me that when you purge things, you don't just purge the bad, you purge the good too. So now I have to reintroduce all the nutrients and minerals and things that's within my body as well. So as I think about us detoxifying, you know, from all the negatives of the world, we also have to re-engineer and create our own new world. And the challenge that I have for everybody is, what is your vision of the world? Now, we're not gonna get everybody to think 25,000 years ahead, but can we think 25 years ahead?
Right.
What is the world that you want to see 25 years from now?
Good point.
If we get to that, now we at least have a goal for every single thing that we do every day. And if we can harmonize enough people on that, now it's up to your will to be undisrupted as you go about utilizing your mind, your knowledge, your position, your resources, your team, your family, every single iota of power that you have to produce that vision in reality. There's going to be people that's going to try and stop it, but it's up to you to show and prove. This has been a High Level Conversations. Stay tapped into the next one. Peace, family.
I'm 19 Keys, and this is High Level Conversations. Tap in with the gods. Peace, family. It's 19 Keys. This is 19 minutes.
When you focus on creating, the experience that you have of making money is going to be automatically dialed into that.
Not any excuses, because I don't live with excuses. I live with decisions.
Because we're so fixated on the attention and not where the value actually is.
Is that the success is not in completion. The success is in the execution.
When I saw that, it turned me up to another level as far as what I'm able to know that I can accomplish.
If they take my deal away right now, I know I'll find another way to get money. Because it's just the hustler in me, but
I feel like I'm always in that mode, bro. No matter what I'm doing, I'm taking something in.
Doesn't mean we have to agree, doesn't mean any of that, but we're sharing truth.
That it's not your responsibility to stop triggering people, it's their responsibility to heal.
My ancestral part is you do for your people.
They can understand rare human beings that build out all of their complexity and live around their gift, skills, and talents.